everybody. We are going to be starting a new live talking about employability in potential laboral partners, US. And especially today, we are going to be talking about job search, and employment, in the job tags of the week. So today we are with Diana. Diana, hi, how are you today? Nice seeing you.
Good morning. Super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for sharing with us as well. Okay, I'm very happy for you to be here with me. So, first of all, if we are going to talk about employment on the US, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your experience, what you have done in the past, what are you doing right now as well?
Absolutely. Um, so hello everyone. My name is Diana Nalas. I have been doing recruitment for at least over 10 years here in the United States. A lot of everything, right? Talent acquisition. So from recruitment training, my background is in human resources. So absolutely enjoy the aspect of recruitment. It's an opportunity for me to be around people, and but I think most important to be able to help individuals obtain a job. I currently work for Harvard Maintenance. Harvard Maintenance is a janitorial protective service. It's a nationwide company, and we recruit cleaners as well as security officers. But I focus on the corporate recruitment, so any jobs related to corporate roles, right? So financial roles, human resources, IT. So that's what we focus right now.
Okay, very good. So you're actually working on hardware maintenance, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and you're working as a hiring manager. I believe that's the position, right?
That's correct. Yeah, the title is talent acquisition manager, but it's a
Okay.
recruitment manager. Yes,
Okay, okay. And in the other hand, you're also working with us. I mean, you're helping us as a mentor for interview training, right?
that's correct. Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you, Diana. For the people that doesn't know me yet, I'm Hugo Alvarez. I'm from Potencia Laboral Chile and Potencia Laboral Latam. We're actually a coaching and an employment company, and we basically focus on helping people to find a new job. So today, as I told before, we're going to be talking about the job search, especially on the US, for mostly any kind of professional. So not only Latin American professionals, we're also going to be talking about US professionals that are looking for a new job. So, what do you think about the employment situation right now in the United States, from, of course, from your point of view? What do you think about that, Diana?
Well, we're facing a lot of challenges in the recruitment aspect here in the United States. The labor market is has turned. It's been very different from many years before. And what I mean by that is that it's a candidate's market right now. So for companies who are hiring, it has become challenging. Candidates are being a little more strict on what they're looking for. They know what they want, and so they're going after that. So, for example, a company like ours, we talk to different candidates who are also interviewing with other companies. So they have options, right? And they come to the table with what it is that they want, and oftentimes with higher compensation opportunities. They're asking for higher comps, and so it puts us at a bind because if we have a role that's budgeted for a certain amount, then we're having to go back and look at those budgets. So it's been very challenging recruiting at this point in the United States for those reasons.
Okay, but you're referring to the recruitment process. But what about for the professionals that are looking for a new job? I was talking before to another mentors in Potencia Laboral US, and they told us that even that there's a lot of job offers from the companies right now, it's not that easy to find a job, right? It's not just like I'm gonna find any job that I want right now. It's gonna be quite easy for me to to get employment. So is that the same view that you have right now about that?
So I think for us is the opposite. Like I said, it's a candidates market. So candidates are able to go out and interview with different companies and receive different offers, and so they're able to choose whichever offer is better for them, right? So that's what I'm seeing from my perspective, and what we're now seeing with the market out there. I think that some roles are more difficult than others to hire or to go after. But I think in general, that there are a lot of companies out there recruiting when just the same type of candidates. So I'll give you an example. A corporate accountant or a finance candidate. We're having the same companies go out and recruit for these roles. And so there are just so many candidates that qualify for those roles that we're all competing for the same type of candidates. And so it becomes a matching, right? Who can offer the the most compensation, who can offer the best benefits. And so it becomes very difficult.
Okay, so it's more challenging right now for recruitment, and as I get the right idea, even if there's a lot of job offers, it's not going to be quite easy for somebody to find a job because it's even more challenging as well for the company requirements, right?
That's correct. I think that candidates have the upper hand at this moment. They're able to choose, they're able to tell companies what it is that they're looking for, right? And choose for them. As I said, some roles are more difficult than others, but for the most part, it is a candidate market.
Okay, so do you think that companies right now are in the process of redefining the perks and the benefits that they should be offering to professionals in order to get more attractive offers when looking for recruitment more people into our teams?
Absolutely. But if you're a company that takes into consideration candidates,
Oh, you got a little lagged out there. Yeah, we're having some connection issues with Diana. She got disconnected. Diana, you can reconnect right now whenever you want. Oh, I got you right now.
I'm
Okay,
back.
there
I
you are.
apologize.
Yeah, you
I
got back.
apologize.
Yeah, maybe the
We're
field
having
changed.
we're having bad weather here. It's raining hard, so I apologize.
Oh wow,
Um,
so good to hear. I'm gonna be there next week.
oh no, it
Yeah.
rains here almost every day. But
Oh, I love
anyhow,
that.
I apologize for that.
It's okay.
As I was saying, yeah, absolutely. I think that if organizations really take into account what candidates are looking for, and they really focus, and they see that as an important factor, um, they should be doing that. They should be revamping their benefits, their compensation to be competitive, right? You want to stay within the market, and you want to be competitive, and you want to make sure that you obtain the best qualified candidates for your roles. So I know, for instance, for us at Harvard, that's something that we are doing. We are looking at, what would set us aside from other companies? Why would people would want to come work for us? And so that's something that we're looking at internally. So I think that other companies are doing the same thing.
Okay, perfect, excellent. So it's going to be more challenging as well, easier for even for companies and professionals to find a new job. And as I told you before, I've been talking to a lot of people who's searching for a job in the States, and they told us that it's not that easy. As I told you before, it's not that easy to find a job, even of the higher, I mean, the highest demand of professionals from the company. So, what about your experience, Diana? We were talking about this before in maybe several times about your experience where you were helping some Latin American professionals in Potencia Laboral to improve their interview. Maybe can we address that a little bit so we can talk about what do you feel about being a mentor with such a different culture people here on Chile, that you were working with Chilean people as well, helping them to improve their interview. So I know that here you have a lot of things to say because it's not the same interview process, the same thing that you should be addressing in an interview when you're doing an interview in Chile or Latin America or the interview in the States. So please tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, of course. So I absolutely enjoy the mentorship aspect of this program, of what you do. But I have realized that there are some differences in the process of how it's done, for example, in Chile as versus how it's done in the United States. And one of the things that really catches my attention is how candidates tend to talk about their personal lives during an interview, and that's something that we don't do in the United States. In the United States, we focus on the experience and skills as opposed to family and personal experiences. And so that's one of the things that I have discussed with candidates in the past. When interviewing here in the United States, you don't want to talk about how many children you have or whether or not you're married or not, or that's their focus should be mainly on their past experience and the skills they have and that the skills they can bring to the table.
So let's go into the details of the issue. So if you are doing an interview to me, and if you ask me about myself, which is very common in any interview, and I start answering like I'm a very value oriented person. I love my family. I love my kids. I really want to be passionate about what I do in my life. What would you think about that? That properly accurate into an interview? So,
So that's not bad. I think that most of us want people to know that we have a family and we're very focused. That doesn't bother me. But as a recruiter, what I do is I focus more on when you tell me that you are, very ethical, very professional. Then I'll focus on that, right? And I'll ask them, well, tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about your professionalism. What does that mean to you? As opposed to asking questions pertaining to, your personal life or your family. I think oftentimes you do have candidates who talk about their families and they tell you reasons why they probably left their other jobs, which is valid points. However, I think that as a recruiter, it's important for us to focus on the professional aspect as opposed to their personal lives.
perfect, perfect. So now that we are talking about interview and issues or maybe some mistake that people goes into when going into a job process, let's jump into the job search. What about job search issues and common most difficulties that any professional should be facing when looking for a new job? Is there like a three main points that, yeah, or maybe three, two, or one main point that you would like to address when some professional is looking for a new job and the most common issues or mistakes that they're going to be making, especially in the US?
Absolutely. I think that one of the most important aspects of when searching for a job is making sure that your resume is targeted to the specific role.
Yeah,
For instance, a lot of candidates, what they do is they look for jobs, they look at the job description, and then when they submit their resume, it's a very generalized resume. What you want to look at those keywords on the job descriptions, and you want to make sure that those are on your resumes. Obviously, making sure that whatever you're putting on your resume is valid and is the truth. Like you want to target those roles. So if a job description is asking for someone who has excellent communication skills, or if they're asking for um, organizational skills, you want to make sure you put that on your resume. Of course, if you've done that, you want to make sure you put it on there. You don't want to lie on your resume. But I think the most important aspect is to make sure that you target your resume to the job description so that it actually relates to the job. I've oftentimes see resumes that come in for particular roles, but I look at it and I question myself, do they really have the experience? And someone as a recruiter should automatically be able to look at a resume and see whether or not someone has the skills or the experience for that role. So I think that's one of the biggest issues that we see.
okay, so in an overview, we are talking about the resume with the keywords. It's a very important word that I just mentioned. And also it's going to be all aligned to the position that they are really looking for, right?
Absolutely. Very important.
Okay, so we have a question right here from Alfonso. He's asking what happens in US with an unemployment professional over 50 years old. Is there like a, well, I'm going to help you out a little bit in the question because in Latin America, most of the professionals with more than 50 years old, they're kind of left apart, left apart company doesn't feel like very common to be working with them in some segment of companies, not in every company, but well, we think here that the age is a factor, but it's not an absolute blocker for any professionals searching for a new job. So, what happened on the states with that one?
Well, I will tell you that one of the requirements is that we have certain laws here in the United States that we must follow as recruiters. And one of them is that we cannot base our decisions on anything related to age, religion, and there's many more. So when we talk about age, I will tell you our resumes when they come in, they don't have this demographic information on candidates. So I never know how old the candidate is. The only thing I see is their experience, right, and their job history. So when you ask what happens, nothing should happen. A candidate, whether they're 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 years old, they should be considered equally depending on their experience and qualifications and not on their age. So that's something that every talent acquisition or every recruiter here in the United States should follow. So um, that shouldn't be an issue.
I love the answer. I really loved it. Very good one. So it shouldn't happen in the States when you're going to an interview that the recruiter asks you, "Hey, how you doing? How old are you?" It's not going to happen.
Correct. That should never be a question on an interview. They should never ask
Very common in
about.
Latin America.
Wow, yeah, it's
Yeah,
very sad.
we
But
have
they should never ask you about, right, your age. Are you married? Do you have kids?
yeah.
What's your political preference or what's your religion preference? That should never be asked on an interview. So they should be focusing, like I said, on experience, back experience and skills.
Well, I think I'm totally agree with that because I think that's really good. It helps the recruiter to focus on the real issues that they need to search about competence, skills, about experience, they should be doing the work, and not in issues like the age or kids, married or stuff like that. Okay,
That's
great
correct. I
question.
think
Okay,
at the end of the day, organizations should hire based on the potential that candidates can bring to the table and how well they can perform their jobs, right? They shouldn't be focusing on personal lives or experiences or whether or not a person is married or not. So that's the way it should be done.
okay. Let's jump into another question. What do you think about apply? Mass apply. So mass, no must, mass apply. So when people is looking for any job, they start applying for any offer that they see on the on the internet, on the LinkedIn page. What do you think about that? Is this good? Yeah, should we be covering so many options as we can, or is there going to be like some guidance that we need to follow?
So the reality is that when you're desperate and you're looking for a job, you're gonna apply to every opportunity that is out there. However, I don't feel that's a good idea. I think you should target the jobs that meet your qualifications and the jobs that really interest you. So what happens is that oftentimes when you apply to many jobs, right? And I've seen it, for example, in my company, I have several roles open, and you see the same candidate applying for all different
Yeah,
roles.
having the
It
same.
doesn't look good.
Yeah.
We understand that candidates are looking for jobs and oftentimes they're desperate, but I believe that you should focus your search on what it is that you really want to do, because when you start applying for different roles, it tells us that you are really not sure about what you want to do. And so it doesn't look good. So a recommendation is to target your job search and only look for the roles that really interest you and that you feel you have the qualifications for.
Anyway, when you apply to different positions with the same resume, that's also going to be another problem for you because when you get called into an interview for any of those different positions that you have applied, uh, what about the answer that you're going to give? Your achievements, your skills in the job?
That's correct. It's also important to be able to target your resume for the role. because you want to make sure that you target a specific goal. So you have a position, you want to make sure you're targeting for everything that you've done in your history based on the teaching goal. But then you go and you say, I also have HR experience, let me apply for this role. Well, now you have to tweak that resume to make sure that it shows the experience that you have in HR. So you have to use different resumes, not that you're lying, you're but some oftentimes candidates have different types of experiences that they can propose. So it's important to be able to target those resumes based on the roles they're looking for.
Okay. And about job reference of your previous job experience that you had before and the time, is there any issue that professionals goes into when looking for any job about the job reference? I mean, uh, they can say that they were manager of operations or something like that, but then when the recruiter record the reference to us, mainly for validation, is going to be any issue over there with this reference?
Absolutely. We take references very seriously, especially here at our company. We you can gather a lot of information from references, right? Typically, we always ask for professional references. We never ask for personal references. So we ask for either people they have worked with, or me, or previous managers and supervisors that can give us a reference. And so when we get a negative reference, a red flag for us, right? It kind of puts a red flag, and then we have to go back and kind of question whether or not the candidate was truthful about what they said on the interview. So it is very important that whatever they say on the interview, always be truthful about it, and that when they provide references, that first they contact those references to let them know that they're putting them down as references, so that when we call, they know and they expect the call. Because oftentimes when you call a reference and they don't know about it, they're caught off guard and they don't know what to say, or they don't even know if they're supposed to be saying anything, right? So it's important for first for them to contact the references, and secondly, make sure that they use references that they know they've had a good relationship with. You don't want to put a reference where you had a bad relationship, and they're going to give you a bad reference, because then it's not going to look good and it's going to create a red flag.
Okay, pretty good. So references are important in the job search. Recruiter really take it seriously because it's going to be used for validation of the experience and what they told in the interview. And okay, very good. If you had to rate professionals that you have interviewed in the past, I don't know if it's possible as well. So, or if you can do it, if you can rate them in general from 1 to 10, what do you think about the interview performance that you have with you when you have interviews with professionals? Uh, how would you rate them from 1 to 10 in general?
So that's a very difficult question to answer, because I've had a wide range of candidates. So I've had candidates where they'll jump on a call, and the first they know they're expecting a call, the first thing they say on the phone is, "Hey," right? As opposed to "good morning" or "afternoon," and they already know that they're going to be called. So I look at everything, right? I'm not saying that this person might not have the qualifications, but during an interview, you look at everything, right? You're looking at body language, you're looking at communication skills. If it's a customer service role and you're answering the phone, hey, I'm already looking at that, and that's a problem. But I've also had candidates where I get in the on a phone call, and they are absolutely enjoyable to speak with, right? So it just depends. You have a little bit of everything, and it saddens me when I talk to those candidates who don't have the interview skills, because there are a lot of companies out there like yours, right, that provide these services that can assist candidates with the interview skills, with the resume writing skills, so that when they go out and apply for jobs, they already know what to expect and how to do it. So I know I probably didn't answer your question, but it's very difficult because it's a very wide range. On my experience, I've seen it all. So
I can rephrase. I can try to rephrase. So, how will you qualify in general? Are professionals really prepared to find a new job or to face a job search process in the States?
Got
So,
it.
I like a reverse the question, you know?
So I would say that about 80% of professionals here are ready and they have been through the process and they understand and they know it.
Okay, great.
And so because they've been in the process, they know what to expect. So I think the rate will be about 80%.
Okay, okay. So 80%, 80%
Yes.
of professionals are really prepared to find a job. Okay, great. And the most about the interview itself. So, what about interview process? Is there any common issues that professionals made while doing an interview with you? So maybe the way they dress, the presentation, the appearance, the way they answer the question that you made them. So,
Yes, absolutely. So one of the issues that I see often is when asked a question, obviously we want answers that provide us enough detail. And what candidates do oftentimes is that they just provide minimal information instead of being descriptive with their answers. And so that's when we have to go back and ask follow-up questions. So if you see that a recruiter just ask questions within the same type of topics, because we haven't been able to figure out what the person we be looking for. So one is not giving enough information. Um, Two is I think giving a detailed examples, especially if you're asking behavioral questions. We want to know if the candidate not only has the skills, not only has the experience, but also if there would be a good fit, a cultural fit for a particular organization. I really haven't had candidates dress. I think that for the most part, they understand that if they're going to an interview, they have to be dressed a certain way. So I really haven't had a lot of issues with that. But I think for me, the most the biggest issue has been not providing enough details and not giving enough information to where it allows me to recognize whether or not that candidate has the skills that we're looking for.
okay. Usually, when professionals are looking for a new job, they aren't very clear about the position they should be targeting to. So, if I'm looking at a job for as an operation manager, maybe I'm not quite qualified for that position. So, how often do you see that situation occurring on professionals?
I see it very often. And you know what the biggest problem is? Typically, when a candidate comes and applies for a role and is doing the interview, is that they haven't really read the job description
Oh, wow.
carefully. And they
Uh,
think that, oh, maybe I can do this job. But in reality, when we're discussing the role, they don't have the qualifications that we're looking for. So it's very important to read job descriptions is carefully to look at every line and to see if they do have the experience that the job description is requiring. So um, you see that very often. That's because
okay,
they don't
okay.
take the time to read the job description.
Yeah. Well, actually, in Potencia Laboral, we have the same view of the any employment process. If one professional is looking for a new job, one of the most important things that they should taking care about, not only the resume, not only the interview, not only talk about my achievements, what I have done in previous jobs, is about directing myself into valid target positions that they are really agree, they are really in the line of what I have done and what the market can offer me as well. So that's happening, as you told me, yes, as you just told me, it's happening in Latin America and it's also happening in the States. So it's very common, as I can see.
Good, and it's very important. It's extremely important to be able to have that correlation. Because that way candidates they're not wasting their time going into interviews for roles that they're not even qualified for.
Okay, pretty good. So let's go now into employment process. If we think about any professionals that's looking for a new job, looking for a new opportunity, looking for develop their career, uh, in general terms, what would you suggest for those professionals in about what should be doing for get better results in the job search process?
I think that one of the things that is important will be to do a lot of networking. Not sure if in South America this is something that that is provided to candidates, but
Yeah.
here in the United States we have a lot of organizations and we have a lot of networking events that are targeted to specific roles, right? Where people can go out and network and meet other people, other individuals, um, and get to know people that can provide them with opportunities. So I think that number one would be the networking, going out and meeting
Network.
other people. Yes. Also, I think that it would be a good idea to, if it's been a long time before they have interviewed or they have gone out to apply for a job, it would be a good idea to get some assistance in the process, especially if they've been out of it for a very long time. Times change and the way that things get done also change. So getting assistance with the resume writing, getting assistance with the interview process, getting assistance with even minimal things as to what to wear, what not to wear. I think that that would also be very helpful.
Okay, good. So maybe sometimes professionals get a little nervous when they doesn't have a lot of preparation for going to interviews, or they haven't. It's been a while they haven't been into a job process again. So there are a lot of nerves involved in the process, right?
Absolutely. I think that practicing interview questions will help them get more, become a little bit more familiar with the type of questions, can put them at ease. We all know that interviews can get you very stressed, very nervous, and oftentimes that comes out in the interview. So I think practicing those questions, having someone that can assist, depending on the roles, maybe give you practice questions that they would probably ask, and you go over those questions and maybe have something in your head prior to going into the interview so that you're prepared. I think that being prepared for interviews is very important. Even if they don't ask the same questions, at least you know some of the things that you could probably talk about, some of the things that you want people to know about you, projects that you've worked on, things that you've done for different organizations that will bring up value to the next organization you would work for. So definitely having practice and a little bit of knowledge as to what you would say in the interview would be very helpful, especially if you know that you're the type of person who gets very nervous during an interview.
Okay. So let's go a little bit deeper, and I promise it's going to be the last difficult question I'm going to do to you, the last tricky question I'm going to do. Is there any question like, what do you left your previous company? Like, it's quite difficult to answer for professionals.
So that's actually a question I always ask.
Oh
Um,
wow.
One of the questions, so probably one of my first questions that I ask someone as I'm looking through the resumes, if they're currently working for a company, the first thing that I ask is, I see that you're currently working. Why are you looking to leave your current role? I want to understand what's making you leave that role. And if they're not working, then I ask, why did you leave your previous role, right? And then from there, I'll dig a little deeper from the resume. But that's a very important question, at least for me. I want to understand what's happening in your life right now that is either making you leave your current role, or that what's the reason why you're not working. So it is a very difficult question for candidates to answer. I will say that oftentimes candidates, if they're currently working, they leave their current roles for growth opportunities. They find that where they're currently working at, they see that they're not going to continue to grow, and they're looking for an opportunity with another organization that can provide them with that. So I think that's the number one answer, that typically candidates give when they're looking for a role while they're already working.
Okay, great. And what about the other question, which is, why do you want to work in this company? Why do you want to be working with us? Do you also do that question in your interviews? I'm going to
I
type in
do.
everybody about this. Huh?
It depends. It depends on the type of role. But that is a very valid question. I think organizations want to know why. Why do you? What makes
Why do you want
you
to work with
interested?
us?
Why are you interested in our company? Why do you want to come work for us? I think it's a valid question that most organizations ask and they want to know about. And I think it's important for candidates to research companies that they're applying for. Because as a recruiter, I want to know if you did your homework. I want to know if you know what it is that you're applying to and what it is that
Yes.
you're getting yourself into. So by asking those questions, it's going to tell me whether or not you did your homework and you know enough about our company.
Great. Uh, I don't know if you can guess what's going to be my next question. So, why should
I
we
don't
choose you?
know. I don't know. But go ahead, throw it out there.
Why should we choose you? But should you be the candidate that we select for this position?
I
So,
love
do
that
you do that
question.
question? What do you think about that?
I love that question. Look, I think interviews. I'm a weird person, and maybe that's why I'm in recruitment because recruitment, when you go for an interview, that is your opportunity to shine. That is your opportunity to tell people what you're about, and it's the one time you got your 30 second to shine. And so when I ask that question, I want to know why. Why should I choose you? I want to hear everything that you're capable of doing. I want you to feel comfortable enough to talk about what you've done. And so that's why I really like that question. I want to hear from candidates that they can do this job, and I want them to tell me everything that they've done, their experience, their skills. That's what I'm looking for when I ask that question.
Mm. I think that also a question can be complemented with information regarding to my experience and how is that going to be in concurrency with what the company needs. So if I have experience working in something before and the company needs for me to know something that I had done before, I think it's going to be an important plus for my applying, right?
I think that that question can open up a lot of, if there's a lot of room with that question for candidates to be able to talk about things that they haven't talked about during the interview process, right? So,
Yeah.
with that question, again, is there time to shine? Is there time to tell them why they're the best candidate for the role? And we're looking at, some of the answers that we typically look for is we want to hear what you've done in the past, right? Your experience, but very specific. And this is where I mean, where candidates sometimes they don't really tell a story, right? I don't just want to know the number of years that you've been doing it. I want to know that, okay, I've been doing this role for 15 years, but this is what I've done. This is what I created. This is why your company should choose me. This is what sets me apart from your other candidates.
Okay, great. Do you actually do some remote interviews? So, in the process of gathering information from us in the US, we have seen that a lot of job offers are remote. Not many job offers right now, especially if the company has some special requirements, but most of the offers are remote to be working from your home. So, do you actually do some remote interview for candidates?
So we currently, I think most of our interviews are remote at the moment. However, our roles are not remote. Our company is not a remote company. Our company, we have to be sitting at the office. We do a hybrid mode, but as far as the interview process, everything is being done remotely, especially because of COVID. We're now coming back little by little into the office and having in-person interviews, and it just depends on the roles. But for the most part, right now, I would say 90% of the interview process is being done remotely, but the work is in the office.
Okay. Any suggestions for professionals that are applying to remote interview about the background, how they should be dressing? But we can talk
Yes,
about that.
yes, absolutely. Oh, and I've seen it all again, but I think it's very important. One
Me
of the
too.
things that
Me
I
too.
worry about is the background, right?
The background.
You
Yeah.
just want, at a very minimum, I think every what I'm looking for, either Zoom or Teams, any of
Oh,
those programs, any program that you use, for the
applications.
most
Yeah.
part, applications they have backgrounds. So even
Yeah.
if it's a blur, even if it's a white background, you want to make sure you use that. You want to make sure that you're presentable, and that you're looking apart for an interview, and then also the noise in the room. We I've had hiring managers where they've interviewed candidates and they're taking the call from their cars. That's not very
Wow.
professional. Now,
It's
if
not very
something comes
successful,
up,
right?
it's not. I think that it just shows your commitment to the interview. Now,
Yeah.
if for whatever reason you have to take it in the car, the first thing you should say, once you appear on camera, say, "I apologize. I have to take it in my car for this reason." Right? Let them know that this is not what you intended for,
Yeah. Yes.
but you should be prepared because it shows your commitment on the interview. So the noise in the room, even if it's for 30 minutes, just set aside those 30 minutes. That's why when you set up an interview, make sure that you set up a time and a place that you know you're going to be able to commit to. Very important.
Okay. Is it the same for you as an interviewer to have a job interview with a professional who's connecting from the laptop, either the laptop or the phone or the mobile phone?
I don't think it matters. I think for the candidate, as long as their equipment works, that's what matters. I've had
Okay.
candidates that have jumped on interviews and their video doesn't work. So oftentimes I tell candidates, make sure this is going to be a Zoom interview. Make sure that your phone is working or your laptop. Make sure video and your microphone is working prior to the interview, so they're prepared. Because again, it shows commitment. And believe it or not, hiring managers look at that. Recruiters look at that. They want to see if the person is prepared because it just shows commitment.
Great. Great. Wow, very, very interesting talk that we just had. So we were talking about a lot of things. We were talking about the situation on the states, about the employment situation, about what the companies are looking for. We were also talking about the professionals, what they should be doing for improve their job search, to help to get more opportunities as well. So we were talking about employment. We went into the interviews. There are a lot of things that we just addressed into the talk that we had today. So um, well, there's one question over here. Mauricio Godoy, hey, I would like to know if you use the question, what about your strength or weakness, and how is the best options to answer? Diana, please.
So I always ask those questions, believe it or not. I think they're really good questions. So I always ask about, tell me a little bit about your weaknesses, tell me a little about your strengths. So strengths, everybody knows their strengths, right? Everybody,
Yeah.
they can probably talk very good and for a very long time about their strengths. I don't think that you need advice on that. Now, weaknesses, this is the one question where candidates always take a pause, right? They either what they were not prepared to answer a question like this, or they have no clue what to say. So when I was saying be prepared, make sure that you practice for the interview. That's what I mean. You want to make sure that you practice questions like this one. So weaknesses. So you want to talk about your challenges or your weaknesses, but you want to also put it in a positive way. For example, when they ask about weaknesses, it's okay to say, I'm a workaholic. I don't know when to stop, right? Obviously, you have to make sure that's true, right? You don't want to say lies. But why is that a weakness? Well, for you, it might be a weakness because you never know what to stop. You're always working, you're always on the go. Companies like that, right? Companies like people that are always working, that always want to work. So it's kind of like a double standard kind of question. Um, for me, when I used to interview, this question I would answer with, the fact that I didn't have a lot of patience for
Yeah.
people, right? So I'm always working at this level, and then sometimes you work with people that are not at the same level, right? And so you have to learn how to have patience working with different types of people, right? That's a weakness, but you understand, right, that that's your weakness and that you're working on making that better. So anytime you say a weakness, you want to make sure that you let them know that you recognize that's a weakness and what it is that you're doing to better that weakness, right? I've had people tell me, I'm not knowledgeable in a particular industry, but it's okay. It's okay because that's why you're applying, because you want to learn, you want to get to the next level.
Yeah.
So anytime you talk about weaknesses, you always want to make sure that you let them know what it is that you're doing to improve that weakness or challenge.
Yeah, I also have 2 points about the same issue. So when most of the recruiters ask you about your strengths, they're going to be asking you first about your strengths. So you get into a comfortable position and talk about yourself, and you feel like, wow, this is my strength, this is me. And then they're going to flip up and going to say, hey, now talk about your weakness. I want to know about yourself. So
That's correct.
that's
That's
kind of
correct.
a tricky question that most of the recruiters do. I don't know if you do that or not, but it's
I
very
do.
common.
I always ask those questions. Always.
Oh,
It tells me, I've had candidates that flat out will tell me I don't have any weaknesses.
I
Which
don't have any weaknesses. Wow,
that's
perfect.
definitely not a good answer. Because nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
I've had candidates tell me, well, we all have weaknesses, right? And then they'll list, or they'll say, we all have weaknesses. I just can't think of it right now. And that's okay. But at least you're recognizing that we all have weaknesses. So trust me, I've had all kinds of answers.
And the other thing what I have saw is that many recruiters, when they asked the question of weaknesses, they are looking to see how truly the professional is about talking about themselves. So
Correct.
how truly I am about talking about my weaknesses. So
Correct.
I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you about the most common questions. I mean, the most common answer that any professional should give about that. So everybody says, "No, I'm too workaholic. I'm too demanding for the targets with my team. I can't afford any failure in my job." So they are kind of very common questions that most of the professional answer. So there's another issue, as I told you before. So professionals must try to be truly about the answer. So am I truly about what I really need to be working to improve myself?
That's correct. And I think this is a very important question because it tells us, um, if you know enough about yourself, one. Secondly, if you can talk in a negative way about yourself, if you can recognize, because when it all comes down to it, in a job, are you able to accept mistakes and move forward? Or can you learn from those mistakes, right? I want to know what your take on that is, and it gives me a little bit of insight on the in the way that you respond.
Yeah. I gotta be honest on this one. You know what I do when I ask someone about the weakness, and they told me I don't have anything to improve myself. I don't have anything. I'm perfect. I really dig on. I dig a lot. So tell me about your experience. Is there anywhere, anytime, anything that you have made a mistake before in your job? Did you never make a mistake? So I really dig, and I dig a lot, because as you told before, there shouldn't be any person that doesn't have any mistakes, doesn't have anything to improve, and I dig because that tells me that I'm talking to a person that doesn't have any internal look, doesn't have the capability of not themselves. So,
Correct.
and in the work, I mean, while working with a person like that, it's going to be quite difficult because they're never going to make any mistakes. They're
Correct.
not going to be wrong. Everybody's going to be wrong. All the people is going to be in there. It's going to be wrong.
Correct.
They're going to be always right. So I think it's a very dangerous question to any professionals to face something like that, because first of all you need to be truly, as we mentioned before, you need to be truly about your answer, and you need to mention things that are really liable. I mean, it's gotta be make sense for the recruiter.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to know that it's okay. It's okay to talk about the weaknesses. We all have them.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we ask those questions, because we want to know how you're going to answer and the type of person, right? It gives an insight to the type of person that you are. So um, people get scared when they get questions like that, but for me, it's an opportunity for you to again shine, not only with your strengths but also with your weaknesses. You can tell them, this is what I'm my challenges are, but you know what, I acknowledge I have challenges and I'm working to get those resolved.
And there's also got to be a balanced line between how truly you are, and how many I mean, how much do you think in the job, when you answer the question? Because if you ask me, tell me about your weakness, and I told you and answer you, I'm lazy and don't like to get up the bed in the morning. I am being 100%
Yeah,
honest with you.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, you definitely have to. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. You want to talk about strengths and weaknesses that are relatable to the role. Um, you don't want to talk about stuff like that. Obviously, even if you are lazy and even if you don't like to get out of your bed, you don't want to talk about that. Again, you want to make those weaknesses challenges, but then you need to turn it around in a positive way as well. Yeah.
Okay, let's jump into the strengths. What about the strengths? If I answer you, I am a really good person to eat hot dogs. I
No,
can eat like 10 hot dogs,
I think the strengths should focus
which
on
isn't
the
true, by the way, which isn't true. I can
no,
only take one or two.
it's all good. It's all good. I think the strengths should be focused on the job description. So every job description has qualifications or skills that they're looking for. I think you should emphasize your strengths based on those qualifications and strengths. You're reinforcing the fact that you can do the role, but not only can you do the role, but hey, this is where I excel, right? So for example, if a qualification is excellent communication skills, when they ask you about your strengths, you can then focus. I have excellent qualification skills, and this is why, right? If they're asking about organizational skills, right? I have excellent organizational skills, and this is why, right? Not only just mentioning it, but letting them know in detail as to why you're so good at it.
Okay. I just saw another question out here. So, the strength should be applied to a job experience or to a position? Wow.
I look at strengths as a whole. Obviously you want to target the role, so kind of like what I just mentioned, if you want to talk about a strength that obviously you've done for a while and that's why it's a strength, but more specifically if that strength is part of the job description of the current role that you're applying for, it's
Yes,
even better.
absolutely.
Now, let's say, for example, you don't have a strength that's on the particular on that present job description. Then you can talk about your experience. What has been your strength throughout all your years of experience, right? And I think that that would also be helpful. But you should definitely target the role that you're applying for.
Yeah, I'm fully agree. You should be turning into a role. Yeah, not to your previous experience, because mostly this question is related to an skills based interview. So you're looking for the skills. So if they doesn't have the experience, what would the recruiter think about that? So you shouldn't be having the skills if you don't have any question for that. There's. I think this is going to be the last question that we are going to be addressing. So when the recruiters ask, where do you see yourself in 5 or more years? Wow, good one, Mauricio.
Yeah. So I see this answer, this question as a double sword, and you have to be very careful how you answer this because if you say, I want to become the CEO of the company, then that's telling me that in the next 5 years, you probably won't be working for this company because you're going to keep looking until you find that role that will get you to the CEO of the company. So I think that when they ask this question, you have to be very careful. You need to look at the role and kind of decide where do you see yourself after this role, because typically you want to be in a role for at least 3 years before you move on. So I would say 5 years will be a step up from where you are currently applying for. So you just have to be very careful with this question. Now, if they ask you, where do you see yourself in 10 years? Then okay, I think in 10 years, based on the role I'm applying for, I could probably be the CEO of the company, right? So it just all depends the role, but depends on the role that you're applying for. But just be very careful because some recruiters can look at that and be like, I don't think he's really gonna be here and committed for the next 5 years because he's looking to leave. So.
Yeah, I think there's also an important point about the timeline of the question. So if I ask you, what do you see yourself in 3 more years, and the candidate replies you like, I'm gonna be in your position. I'm gonna be working in your position.
And it all depends though, because if you're talking to the CEO of the company and you are applying, yeah, it just depends on the role that you're applying for and who it is that you're talking to, right? So, but that's a definitely good question, and they do ask those questions.
Okay. Uh, we're gonna be addressing the last one, Diana, which is very good. So how do you see your stability in a job as a strength? So example, when you're working for a long time in the same company, well, there are candidates, there are professionals, even in Chile, in the States, or Latin America, that usually work for a long, long time in companies. Like when we're talking about long time, it's like more than 5 years, like 10 years or even 15 years working in the same company. So what do you think about that kind of professionals?
I
Is it
think
a
that
good
that's
thing
one
or
of
not?
that
So
absolutely. Companies do look at tenure, and stability is one of them. That's very important because it tells us how loyal, your work ethic. Stability has a lot of things that come behind it. So stability is very important, and companies do look at that. So using that as a strength is absolutely a good one. Obviously, again, if you have it and you can back it up with proof on your resume. So if you're telling me stability, but you've jumped from job to job in the past 5 years, then obviously there's no coordination there, and there's no validity. But if I see you say stability and I look at your resume and you've been in your job for 10, 15 years, even 5 years, that says a lot about a person.
I'm agree, but I think that there's an important factor over there which is related with the time that you were in experience. So if you were working for a lot of time in the same company, like maybe 10 years, I think that maybe a recruiter of or what I would be doing, I would be taking a deep look into the what happened in the job. So why did you stay that many time in the same company, the same job? So were you just keeping with the rhythm of the company, of the position? Did you get into a comfortable zone in your job? I think I'm gonna be taking the same look as you, but maybe I would be go a little bit deeper. I would dig on the why do you stay that many time in a company, especially right now where there are so many people moving from one job into another, and especially, well, most of the people should be working the same company for more than 3 years. That's like the common time that you should be like growing in your career.
Well, with COVID now, we're seeing that all that changed. So ever since COVID, um, oftentimes, if not 90% of the time, when I look at a candidate's resume, from the time that COVID started till now, you see a lot of jump in employment. It's understandable, and that's one of the things that I tell my hiring managers. We can look at that, right? Anything before that, absolutely. But you're right. It's very important to question, and I do ask when I see a resume, because it's very not rare, but it's for me, it's fascinating to see that, but you don't see a lot of candidates who have that tenure on their resumes. And when I do see it, I do question what happened. Why did you leave so and so company after being there for so many years? And then based on what they tell me, then I dig a little more or not. So absolutely, great point.
Great. Happy to be agree. Diana, we just got into a time. We were talking about 1 hour over here. Let me tell
No,
you that I
this
really
is
enjoyed.
great. No, this is great. I love this. Anytime you have any questions, please let me know. Reach out. Like I said, part of my job, the reason why I love it so much is the opportunity to be able to help others. And these are great questions. So please continue. Everybody who's here, this is a great opportunity for you to get some help if you have all these questions. Potencia Laboral is doing an amazing job, and keep up the good work.
Well, thank you for being here with me. Thank you for being a mentor in Potencia Laboral. I really appreciate it. So, and I really loved to be talking with you here. It was really, really fun.
Thank you. Likewise.
Okay.
Thank you for
Take a
having
good
me.
one. Bye
Thank
bye.
you,
See
everybody.
you.